welcome to another video. Thank you for joining me down here in the village of Drub, which is just between Birkenshaw and Cleckheaton, just outside Bradford in West Yorkshire. But we're down here today to look at something a bit different. So what we're going to be looking at today is a Halifax Bomber crash that happened right here on Boxing Day in 1943. And it happened on these fields here, or just behind the camera, just outside the village of Drub. Now the story is quite a fascinating, remarkable story. So I'm going to go through with you now the basic premise of what happened. So on Boxing Day 1943, a young pilot who was only 20 years old by the name of Tom Scotland, he was flying his Halifax Bomber aircraft on a training mission. And he came all the way from Marston Moor Air Base, which was just near York. And he was flying around the area doing some training exercises. And his plane got into some trouble. It was basically the motor or the engine on the left wing burst into flames mid-flight. And right there and then he had to make a quick decision as to what he was going to do. Now, we did have 7 other crew members on board the plane. And he instructed them there and then to get out of the plane, basically. So they parachuted out of the plane to safety. And then he had a decision to make as well. Right there and then, as he's circling around this area here, which is rather built up, he was panicking, wondering whether he should ditch the plane himself and jump out with the parachute like the other lads did, or whether he should stay with the plane and land it, avoiding the village and trying to kill other people in the houses. So he made a split decision within a couple of seconds there and then. Being a 20-year-old lad as well, all that weight on his shoulders, he decided to stick with the plane and guide it hopefully to safety, but that could mean in his death himself. So he took that risk, and what he did, he brought the plane in quite low around here, and he was looking for a landing spot. Now if you know this area, it's quite hilly and there's a big valley down here. So he didn't really have much choice. So what he did was he circled round just behind the camera, and he managed to bring it in just at the bottom of the road down here behind the camera and run it up this hill where I'm sat now, knowing that the momentum of the hill would stop it. So he managed to circle the plane down round across Whitehall Road, which is just there, running behind them trees in the distance. He managed to circle it around there. And as he came in over the road, he managed to hit the wall at the edge of the road, the dry stone wall. And it tore off the tail of the plane, dispersing it down there, the bottom end of the site. He then hit the ground straight away, skidded up the hill, came to a stop right at the top of the hill in some trees, which I'm presuming would be those trees down there. And then it avoided all the houses that were near it. There's housing all down the side of there. Just as he managed to clamber out of the plane from the top, he jumped down the side. It's about a 12-foot drop down the side. He managed to just jump out. The plane just exploded and blew up. Now, it did have ammunition on board the plane, but no bombs or anything like that. He managed to clamber up the banking away from the plane. And just as he was doing that, a lot of the villagers were coming out and rushing towards him. The first one that came up to him, just as this had all happened, was a young boy. And the young boy said to him, "Hey, mister, can I have your tail?" Obviously, at the time, he meant he wanted the tail down the bottom to keep. During the crash, Tom actually injured his back quite bad, and he was able to move, but when he jumped out of the plane, he said it actually really hurt when he fell. Now, just another side story that's related to this. At the time, there was a 5-year-old boy playing with his friends, just on the old coal mine, which I'm presuming is the one on the hill just up here. He said he was playing up there with his mates, 5-year-old, and he saw the plane come in above him. Now, back in them days, they were used to seeing planes flying around, being in the wartime. But this one was very low. And he said all of a sudden he saw it dip into the valley and circle round. And then he heard it crash at the bottom and then an almighty bang as it blew up. He remembers this. And at the time, this 5-year-old boy, who was called Bill Duncanson, he shot down to the crash site. And he was mesmerised by what he saw. He said he saw this man in an RAF uniform crawling out of the wreckage, and before you knew it, the villagers had took him under their wings, and in true Yorkshire style, they took the injured man straight to the pub and I'm told it was this Savile Arms, which is in Hunsworth, just behind the camera on the other side of the hill over there. It took him there for a couple of swift pints to try calm his nerves, and maybe a few whiskies as well. But the 5-year-old boy at the time, he wandered over there to see what was going on, and quite a crowd had gathered outside the pub. And he remembers as a 5-year-old boy peering through the window and looking at this man drinking those drinks dressed in his uniform. Now let's jump forward to 2003. This 5-year-old boy, Bill Duncanson, had actually emigrated to Australia, and he lived in Perth. Now this 20-year-old boy, Tom Scotland, who flew the plane, he was also Australian. And funnily enough, he lived near Perth in Australia. So many years later, Tom must have written an article in a local newspaper about the crash in Yorkshire. And at the time, Bill was living there, and he saw this article, and he looked at it and thought, that sounds like the one that I saw in Yorkshire. So with that in mind, he contacted this guy, Tom, and out of the blue, Tom said, yes, that's the one I'm talking about. That was me. So by a sheer coincidence, they were both living less than 10 miles apart for many years, and they didn't even know. Now, a good end to the story is that the two met up and they used to reminisce about the crash happening. But they remained friends for a long time, and every Boxing Day they used to meet up and have a whiskey together, until sadly Tom died in 2012. Now, I thought that was a really good story. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to have a wander around, and I'm going to try show you some of the sites in the village where this happened. Now, because there's not much information about it, it's really hard to pinpoint exactly where things happened, but I think I've got a good idea of where it was. I just want to take you over to the village green in Drub. A couple of years ago now, they put a memorial on the village green which talks about this story. So we're just making our way into the village green now. So there you can see the plaque that was unveiled in 2013. Let's take you a bit closer so you can read that. If you want to read it in detail, just pause the video here. You'll be able to read what it says. Now it says on there that the crash happened 250 metres west of this plaque. So that would take it just down there in the field. Had the plane have actually crashed in the village and probably killed people, it may have been more than just a memorial there, because I'm sure there would have been quite a few tragedies there. But luckily that didn't happen, and the village was safe because of the heroic act of the pilot, the 20-year-old pilot, Tom. So I'm just making my way down the hill through the village of Drub. I'm going to go all the way to the bottom of the hill, just where the plane is supposed to have come in. So I'm currently stood at the side of the road on Whitehall Road, which is the A58. And there's the road coming down the hill there. And Drub village is just at the back up there on the top of the hill. So the plane would have come round here somewhere and circled in. And as it came into the field here, now I'm presuming these trees wouldn't have been here. So as the plane came down, there would have been a dry stone wall just over there. There's still one there today, but I don't know exactly where it hit it. It would have hit the wall there, and then its tail would have come off into the field just behind that wall, and the plane carried on that way and up the hill towards the village. So we're going to head down that public footpath there and see if we can follow the route. So the plane would have smashed its way through this wall here somewhere, discarded its tail just over here, and then made its way up the hill over there. If you read the crash report on the Tom Scotland book that he released, he mentions that he passed the brook in the plane, which is just down there. So he obviously skimmed across here at quite some speed, shot across the brook up there, and then made his way up the hill. So we're just making our way over this lovely little bridge. Here's the brook here, which runs right through the field here. I've just spotted that down there. For a second I thought it was part of an aircraft, but I think it's just a lampshade of some kind. Now, they did say straight after the crash happened, they came out and they cleared the site very, very quickly. So within a couple of days it was all gone. But there were some parts that were left over, hidden in where it obviously hit the ground. There was bits buried in the ground, and years later people were finding things and pulling them out. But during the account of the crash from Tom, he mentions that when they came back to the site many years later, and I think this was in the 80s, he came back for a visit, and he met all the people, like 50 years later, he met all the people at the time that were present when the crash happened. including the young boy who asked if they could have the tail, who was now a 50-odd-year-old man. And it must have been quite a nice little pilgrimage for Tom to come back and see it, and the village that were so grateful for what he did. So when he came back, apparently he took a walk through the crash site, and he started over there where I did and headed this way through the field. And he says just at the bottom of the hill from the field where he crashed, which is up there, he said there was a bush and a bit of a shrubbery at the bottom, which is this here. So as it hit this ridge here, the wheels smashed off and the plane slid on its body up there, up the hill. And when he came through in the 80s, he found some metal with rivets in, just in the hedge somewhere here, and also like a mechanical arm from one of the wheels, from the mechanism that lifted the wheels. So there were still bits here buried in the mud or in the bushes, and he happened to find that in the 80s. So I bet if you were to dig around, you might even find something today. I'm making my way up to the top of the hill. Now the account of the crash, he says, the plane rolled up the hill here. And just as it got to the top, I don't know if it stopped just before the trees or if he actually hit the trees. And that's where he came to a stop. And I'm going to hazard a guess that this is where the plane stopped and crashed. Just at the top here. Just before the trees, somewhere in the middle there. You just see through there is houses this side. And it did say stop before the trees, just at the back of the houses. Just a couple of metres more, he would have gone into them houses. Luckily, he didn't. So I'm going to say somewhere around here that the plane would have just exploded. All the locals would have come rushing out. So I've just made my way back down the hill. I'm just about to head out. So I was up there a minute ago, and I'm directly in line with where it would have roughly come up and shed its wheels and everything just down here in this hedge. Now, just while I'm here, I've just spotted something on the ground in the undergrowth down there. I don't know if you can see that. I'll get a bit closer for you. Could this be a part of the plane? It's like a piece of steel or iron or something. Aluminium, maybe. Yeah. It's quite light and thin. And I think I can see a rivet hole just up here. It's buried down. It's actually like an L-shaped piece of metal. There's a little piece here. It's crumbling. Could that be part of the plane? He did say there was bits of wreckage strewn everywhere. Now I'm just at the side of Whitehall Road, which is just up there. You can probably hear all the noise. So when the plane came in to my right over here on the A58, it skimmed the top of the road and it hit the wall on the other side as it came over. So hopefully we're going to find that. So we're going to head up this way and we're going to hopefully find this wall and the telegraph wires that it destroyed as well. Okay, so I've just done a bit of digging on the banking at the side of the road in the trees. Now there's lots of dry stone wall blocks all along here, because I think I've just found it, but I definitely found it. And also I think I found the telegraph wire. So that's the exact spot where the plane would have come in through the wall, right there. Now I don't know if you can see because of the light, but the wall here is a lot darker and sort of it's got more holes and things in it. It's a definite old style dry stone wall, and then this one is new. You can tell by how flat the brickwork is there. But just look around on the floor. All these blocks here, everywhere, they're all down here. Even down the bottom down there. I've just found this as well, I don't know what that is. Looks like a leather strap of some sort. I don't know. He did say that if there was going to be anything remaining, it would be down here somewhere from the plane, because they never really bothered with this end of the plane. They removed the tail off the road and repaired the wall, but that was it. So here we are up at the wall. So you can just see there's Whitehall Road. Now the new wall starts about there, and you can see what I mean about the bricks being a lot more flat and level. Yeah, you can definitely see it. So this is where the plane would have smashed through the wall here. You can see it's quite a deep drop down there. Would have plummeted down there, straight across the field and up. I presume you can see that on the camera, but there's two telegraph wires there. So there's telegraph poles all down the side of this road down here. And when it came in, it apparently ripped the wires and the poles down as well. Now, obviously, at the time, a lot of these trees wouldn't have been here. So when the plane crashed through the wall, these, what I would call brambles and saplings wouldn't have been here. But look what's just on here hanging. Some telegraph wire there, just neatly wrapped round the tree. I'm also told there is some further up as well, but you can't really see it on the camera. I can just see it up there. There is some telegraph cable draped across some of the branches higher up. So obviously when the cables came down here, they would have just probably landed in the tree. Yeah, I've just had another scour around the site and I can't find anything that looks plane related, but like I said, I'm not expecting to find a blooming nose or something. But there is pieces of metal and shards of things all around here.